they will always label the problem and completely disregard the impact that the drugs has on their mental health. Let me tell you about the mental health problems, specifically about one drug, and that's cannabis. You know, cannabis is so common, you can't walk on a road or a street where there are Muslims hanging out and not smell cannabis. You smell it from people, you smell it coming out of people's cars. You go into a place where the Muslims are hanging around, you know, because it's a very distinctive smell. Cannabis, hash, speed, all of these kind of drugs, but it's cannabis specifically. Because, and the reason I'm mentioning this drug specifically is that you'll hear people say that cannabis is not too bad. I just take cannabis to relax. I take cannabis to go to sleep at night. Well, let me share something with you. It says that evidence shows that there is proven link from cannabis to causing short-term memory loss, alteration of perception, paranoia, irritability, sleep problems, and hallucinations. More seriously, it can lead to severe mental health problems. There is now sufficient evidence to show, please, if you just remember this statement, there is now sufficient evidence to show that those who use cannabis at a younger age, such as at the age of 15, how many 15-year-olds are there here today? How many are there younger than 15, come with their parents? There's evidence to show that cannabis use at the age of 15, around that age, that those children have a higher than average risk of developing a psychotic illness such as schizophrenia or bipolar disorder. And now you're going to say, what's schizophrenia, what's bipolar disorder? Let me tell you, when one of your family gets schizophrenia, you will know what it is. It's an awful illness for somebody to have. And these are some of the problems. You know, just in a summary, some of the health problems you invite to yourself every time you smoke a spliff. Every single time. And you know, as if that wasn't bad enough, as if the health problems and the link to mental health problem wasn't bad enough, look at how much damage you do to your deen when you're taking drugs. Allah Azza wa Jal warns us in the Holy Quran to stay away from intoxicants, to stay away from alcohol. Allah Azza wa Jal warns us in the Holy Quran in Surah Ma'idah, verse number 19. The translation: O people who believe, wine and gambling and idols and darts are impure, the works of the shaitan. Therefore keep avoiding them so that you may succeed. Keep avoiding them so that you may succeed. And in a hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, he told us, you know, when a person drinks alcohol, when an individual drinks alcohol, from that moment forward, for 40 days, Allah Ta'ala is displeased with him. 40 days. For 40 days, his namaz is not accepted. For 40 days, his dua is not accepted. Now, what kind of world do we live in, where the night before we're with friends smoking spliffs, and the next day we come into the masjid expecting Allah Ta'ala to answer our prayers? 40 days, Allah Ta'ala is displeased with that individual. And you know the risk a person takes. There's nothing else that scares you about drugs. What I'm going to say now, let this scare you. Honestly, let this scare you. Imam Jalaluddin Sayyidi rahimahumullah, he says in his book about causes of a bad end, about leaving the dunya without iman. Imam Jalaluddin Sayyidi rahmatullahi ta'ala alayhi, he mentions one of the causes of leaving the dunya without iman is a person who uses intoxicants in his life. A person who smokes drugs. A person who can't kick this habit. He has to have a spliff before going to sleep. A person who cannot live his life, everything else is normal. Everything else is fine in his life, but he's got this habit of drugs which he can't kick. The risk is that he does not die with iman. And Amir Ahl Sunnat mentions a whole incident in his book, Method of Evils. And this is not a youngster. This is somebody in his old age, and he's in his last moments of life. He's about to die. And his family around him, they start reading the kalima. His family start reciting Surah Yasin Sharif. And you know, this person, in the last moments of his life, When people are reading the kalima around him, he says to them, stop this noise that you're making, go get some alcohol, I want a glass, I want you to have a glass with me. Just think to yourself what you're placing at risk if you go down a life of drugs. Leaving dunya without iman, what have we gained? Everything is destroyed. Everything is gone. You leave the dunya without iman. And my dear Islamic brothers, this one of the impacts, one of the effects of drugs. Because remember that, and you know why that was for him? Because he had everything else right, but he used to drink alcohol. That was one habit that he could not keep. And remember, my dear brothers, the way we live our life is the way we're going to die. And the way we die is how we shall be raised on the day of judgment. Honestly, it's not worth the risk. And it doesn't infect just the individual. I mentioned at the start, there's an impact on the individual, there's an impact on the family as well. You know, some people, baaz log kehte hain ki dekhiye, it's my body, it's my money, I'll do what I want with it. But let me tell you, it's not just your money and your body. Whenever any youngster goes down a life of drugs, when a youngster starts smoking cannabis and then it leads to other drugs, it's not just that youngster who is affected, his whole family is affected. His whole family is dragged down with him. And I'll explain that to you in an incident, a real life incident. This is not from centuries ago. This is from very recent, and this is from this country where we live. I mentioned to you that mental health problems. There are so many of our youngsters in mental health institutions. And there was a couple, their mother and father. And you know, when you hear these people's stories, it makes your heart bleed. It really makes your heart bleed. In this mother and father, their son is detained, he's sectioned under the mental health. Representing their son. And he met with the parents, and it was a few days before Eid, 26th or 27th of Ramadan Sharif. And he says that as I left, you know, we exchanged, we did salam, and he says, they said to me that you have a good Eid. And I said to the parents, you have a good Eid as well. Mother and father, and they're in the old age. Mother is probably in her 60s, father in his late 60s, early 70s. And they're in a mental health unit with their son. And you know what that mother replied to him? She says, you know, I'll tell you what kind of Eid we have, my son. You know, think about how do we celebrate Eid? We go to Eid namaz in the masjid, we come home, mom's there, family's there, lots of food, nephews, nieces, everyone's smiling, happy. Now listen to this mother, the plea of this mother, how she celebrates Eid. She says, my son, I'll tell you what Eid I have. That your uncle, referring to her husband, that he goes to read Eid namaz. While your uncle is at Eid namaz, she says, I'm at home and I prepare the food. But she says, when your uncle comes back from Eid namaz, she says, we don't get to sit together as a family to have our meal. She says, I take all of that food that I prepared and I pack it into boxes. I pack the food into boxes, and she says, we drive for 200 miles to go and see our son on the day of Eid. And she says they give us half an hour with him, half an hour, in a small room with no windows. And she says, for half an hour, myself and your uncle, the guy can himself. She says, myself and your uncle, we take the food out of the boxes and we sit with our son for half an hour, and we have food on the day of Eid, and this is how we spend our Eid. This is how we spend our Eid. She says, I drive past people's houses and I see people coming in and out, and I wish that this was like my family as well. Now the next time somebody says to you that it's my body and it's my life and I smoke drugs if I want, then you can tell them that you're not just taking yourself down. Your mother and your father, who gave everything for you, they strived for you. You're taking your mother and your father down with you. This is not their age to be in this position. This is today somebody else's parents, my dear brothers. Tomorrow this could be me and you. Tomorrow this could be our parents. And you know, this is such a common story. Honestly, this is not just, you know, something extraordinary. It's so common. There was more closer to home. in West Yorkshire. There was a mother, and her son was detained in a mental health unit. And whilst they were having discussions, she only had one son. One son she had. And she says that I sat in a room with doctors and with nurses and social workers. She said, I never imagined in my life I would be in this situation. And she says, my son, for whom I sacrificed everything in my life, I invested my whole life in my son. She says, after the day he turned around and he says to the doctor, that who is this woman sat in this room? I don't recognize this woman, tell her to go outside. And that woman is uncontrollable how emotional she was. She said, I was a single mother. I raised my son on my own. I looked after him. And she says, I can't see him today because the same body that I used to take care of preciously, she says that same body has scabs and needle marks all over it today. She says he used to put his head in my lap and go to sleep at night. Today the doctors have to give him an injection to make him go to sleep at night. His eyes, she says, I used to look into his eyes and all my problems used to go away. Today those eyes of my son, they don't even recognize the mother anymore. So ye kya hai? What are these stories, my dear brothers? These stories are a warning for us. You know, I believe everybody here, we love our parents. माँ बाप से मोहब्बत करते हैं, alhamdulillah. Everybody loves their parents. So you know, if you love your mom and your dad, if you love them, really, really love them, then don't even let this risk happen that your parents are in that stage one day. Don't let it happen, because the consequences are far too great. And I want to quickly move on to the third topic, which I said is that drugs don't just impact the individual and not just the family, they impact our society as well. And you know how they impact our society? Because we live in a get-rich-quick culture now. All our youngsters, they look around on the streets and they see that there are people fresh out of school and college driving 60,000 pound cars. There are people with no qualifications, no job, they don't do anything, but they've got the latest model car. And the youngsters on our streets grow up and they realize and they think that if I want to have all the latest, if I want people to turn their heads when I walk on the street, if I want people to look at me when I drive down the street, then maybe I need to do what that guy's doing as well. And you know, that places a responsibility on all of us. We don't want our youngsters growing up on such streets. We want our youngsters to grow up and aspire to be ulama kiram, to be imam masjid, to be hafiz al-Quran. We don't want them to grow up wanting to be drug dealers. And that's a responsibility on all of us. And connected with this is all sorts of problems. Gun crime, knife crime. You know, just tell me, in the last month, when you go home, search this in a search engine. How many gun crime, gun deaths and stabbings related to drugs in the United Kingdom? The figures will smack you back in your face. How many times do you hear on the news, young Muslims, 16 years old, 18 years old, 25 years old, in Blackburn, in London, in Manchester, in Bradford, our hometowns, how many youngsters with the whole life ahead of them are stabbed and they're killed or they're shot, not because of anything else, because of drug wars, because of turf wars. This was my patch, he came on my patch, I need to take revenge at him. Is this why we're bringing our children up? So that they can become a target for somebody's knife or somebody's gun? Why should our children become target for that? We all have a responsibility, my dear brothers. And you know, this problem exists. Honestly, this is not exaggerated. This is not anything extraordinary that I'm saying. This problem exists in our communities, and we need to have a solution. And I'm going to quickly, before I finish, because we shouldn't just mention a problem, we should mention a solution as well. And I'm going to mention a few things in front of you. Number one is for parents. There are many parents out here today, many of us who have children. The first point, my dear brothers, is give time and supervise your children. You know, drug dealers, they're the enemy. They prey on young children. What they'll do is they'll say to a youngster, make this delivery for me. He's going to give you £200. You bring 150 to me, you can keep £50. And the youngster thinks to himself, You know, before, so many things I couldn't afford. Those pair of trainers I've seen in that shop for £200, I couldn't buy them before. I do a few of these drops and I can buy these new trainers. I can buy the latest phone. So as parents, when you see your child's behavior changing, if you notice that your child used to come home at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, and now he's staying out until 1, 2 o'clock, as a father, ask your children the question, why are you staying out that late? It's our responsibility, our children, our investment. If you notice that your child, he used to hang around with people in the local area, the lads that he played football with, and now he's hanging around with other people, they pick him up in a brand new car, ask your children, who are these people you're hanging around with? It's our children, our responsibility. And give them the time, my dear brothers. The second thing I want to mention is give your children an alternative. You know, don't just take them away from something, give them an alternative. And alhamdulillah, the alternative is present. Just look around you today. This masjid is full of Muslims. And I would say at least half of this audience are under the age of 25. Dawat-e-Islami provides an alternative. If somebody said to you that my son had this illness and I gave him this medication and it worked for him, as a father you'd say, tell me what that medication was, I'll try for my son as well. This medication, I'm telling you, my dear brothers, this environment of Dawat-e-Islami, it's not just work for one person or a handful of people. This organization has worked for hundreds and thousands of millions of people all over the world. Try this for your children as well. Protect them from the evil that is out there. And the third and final point that I want to make is for the children who are here, the youngsters. Listen to your parents. Your parents are wiser, they're older, they've been through this. And just have this one yardstick in mind. You know, if you're in a situation and people are smoking drugs, somebody offers you something, just ask yourself this one question. If my mom and dad were here right now, if my mom and dad saw me here, would my mom and dad be proud and happy, or would they be ashamed? Simple question. And if the answer is they're going to be ashamed, then don't go near it. Stay away from it. Let people call you a simple guy. Let people say this guy's got no adventure. Let people say that. You don't want to end up in a mental health hospital, I'll tell you that right now. And final point. You know, if you know somebody has a drugs problem, help the person. Seek out these people and help them. They're our brothers. You know, the drug dealers, they're nobody's friend. But these people are friends with drug dealers. Give them an alternative friend. Make them your friend. Never give hope on anybody. You know, remember, we hate the sin but not the sinner. If you walk past somebody and he smells of cannabis, don't hate him. Hate the sin, not the sinner. And I'll finish with a beautiful story a friend of mine, he told me, from Tunisia. And just to give us motivation, never give up on anybody. This story was real life. It became very famous in Tunisia. There was a young lad. He was known in his area as being a bad boy. He never used to come to the masjid, not even Jummah namaz. One day, all of a sudden, it's time for Zohar namaz and this youngster's in the masjid. And as happens, the Babis started talking to each other saying, he's up to no good. One of the elders, they come and they say to him, look, we know you're up to no good. Please leave the masjid. And he thinks to himself that these people, they don't welcome me. So he pretends to leave the masjid. As soon as they start their Jamaat, he comes back in. And then these namazi, they finish their namaz. He stands at the back, he reads his own namaz. They see and they look at him and he's in namaz, in sajda. And they look at him and they think, you know, this guy's up to mischief. We told him, don't come here. He's never been in the masjid before. What is he doing here today? And you know, when they went close to him, they realized that he had passed away in the state of sajda. You know, today's drug user could be tomorrow's preacher stood here. Never give hope on anybody. And the Muslim is one nation. We are one ummah. And Dawat-e-Islami, this beautiful organization, it brings out the best in people. So engage with it and enjoy it and spread it amongst you. Allah Ta'ala give us tawfiq. Ameen. Bijahi Nabil Ameen. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam.